What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/IDontWorkHereLady. This story's called, It Was Nothing Unusual. Most I Don't Work Here Lady stories are unique encounters, and usually they start with only a few people involved. Yet my stories are far from unique, as quite a few went mostly the same way. English isn't my first language, you are free to judge my written English, but I am sure my spoken English is much worse as I rarely use it, have a terrible accent. The worst is that I am often afraid to use it, but once I start and my mind goes into an English mode, it gets better. It sounds and looks bad, but I can still help some people in some cases. And to make this worse, these incidents have an extensive background, so the background will be long, very long, while individual stories will be much shorter. Long time ago, as a young kid, I had to travel to the other end of the city often, so I knew quite a few bus drivers and ticket inspectors, etc. As I made a few friends then, some of those people were still friends years later. I am sure they had more than enough Karens in their lives. Even if ticket inspectors have to speak at least one foreign language, at least on paper, often it isn't English. After all, for some time, Russian was mandatory, German looked more practical, and some of them were refugees from former Yugoslavia or immigrants from Hungarian inhabited regions of any other neighboring country. Ticket inspectors won't spend too much time and won't need help with a Jane who just flashes a valid ticket. They can go, it takes like 5 seconds. But entitled Karens who decide they are the customer in all capitals after ticket inspectors caught them not paying for a service they use, that is a long conflict when anyone who can help with translation or anyone who can testify later could help. So these I don't work your lady moments always start with actual ticket inspectors present, some existing conflict, usually with an already very angry wild Karen. To make things worse, when ticket inspectors want to issue a fine to a local, usually there are two options. Cash right now, or they identify themselves, they sign a form, etc., and they can pay later. In this case, the fine depends on when they pay and if they have just left a valid pass at home or not. For foreigners, including wild Karens, it should be cash only. The fine isn't an actual official fine, it is just based on a contract that is there to compensate the public transportation company for the potential lost income between inspections. It varied a few times, but it is usually priced between the price of 19 tickets and the price of 40 tickets. But ticket inspectors can hold non-paying passengers back till the actual police arrive, and at that time, it can get worse. Normally, if you are Hungarian, they don't press charges, but they get all the documentation for the fine from the police. But in fact, people who use a service with no intention to pay, that can lead to something like a fraud charge. But ticket inspectors are told not to fine foreigners and tourists for honest mistakes, but to help them to correct their mistakes and show them how to validate tickets. This way, more tourists will come and the public transportation company can get more ticket income and tax financing. Any assault against a ticket inspector or their helper is considered a crime far more serious than a normal assault. While the actual charges are different, even a single push can be as serious a crime as an assault against a police officer. The trick is, this added protection applies not only to the actual ticket inspectors, but their helpers as well. And these charges are mostly automatic as well. The victim can't say they don't want charges against the attackers. Ticket inspectors have an armband and some ID badge they wear. I have none of those as I am a passenger. This story within the story is called, You Should Fire These Morons. The cast, me, entitled English Karen. It is an old story, so most of it is paraphrased. It starts when I joined the fray. Karen was already surrounded by a few ticket inspectors, while a few others checked the remaining tickets and passes at the exit from the metro. So I wasn't there for the first few minutes, but it probably started several minutes earlier. I have learned some of the background from the inspectors who checked my pass as I have shown them. I am a big guy, and entitled English Karen was as big as entitled British Karens get. Woman, probably in her 40s. As she was alone, she wore heavy makeup, brown hair, etc. that would fit for a typical Karen. Okay, I hadn't seen the sour face as she was already yelling when I met her, so her face was mostly distorted by anger. I say to entitled English Karen, Hello? Hello, you should fire these morons right now! I can't, as I don't even work here.
Yes, you freaking can. You sure these morons don't deserve a job? They can't even speak English.
A ty говоришь по-русски? Which translates to, and do you speak Russian? I asked in Russian. I don't speak Russian too well either, but I want to make sure to show some of us Central European barbarians might speak multiple foreign languages. Entitled English Karen looks confused. Oh, do you speak any foreign language?
No, I don't have to. I'm English.
I see. Now, let me explain.
Don't frickin' explain. I am the passenger. No one shouldn't be rude to the paying customer. They shouldn't delay me. You should fire them for being an ass.
Ma'am, do you have a valid ticket? I expected she might have a ticket, but not a valid one, as she might have forgotten to validate it. Too bad she had no ticket and she was yelling, screeching, as I have learned that. The moment I tried to turn to ticket inspectors for more information, she grabbed my arm, trying to ensure I only pay attention to her. That was the time to silence her. Shut up! I don't work here! Unlike you, I am a paying customer, and you were rude towards me! And yes, I don't have to tolerate that, so we can call for security. Assaulting any ticket inspector or their helpers is a crime, and the moment you grabbed my arm is on camera. You said people who don't speak a foreign language don't deserve a job. Maybe that's why you can't afford a ticket. It looks like you might be illiterate as well because you didn't manage to understand the English part of the terms and conditions. Maybe you should walk next time. But this time, you should stop assaulting me or any of the ticket inspectors and pay the fine quickly and quietly, unless you want some room over your head in some of our prisons because you can't afford anything else. Entitled English Karen in a much less loud voice.
That was rude.
She had to pay anyway, and while she has sent an official complaint in email later, where she claimed that the manager was even ruder than the inspectors, everyone laughed at her stupid arrogance. This second meta story is called American Karen and the N-Word. Entitled American Karen was another special one. I don't want to paraphrase that discussion, but there I had to use the help of a phone. This Karen was Afro-American, and like some problematic people, she relied on the race card to get away with anything once she has done something wrong. She wanted to see the manager because those racist pigs assume she is a criminal who rides the tram without a ticket or pass. I wouldn't compare her to a typical Karen, as she was younger than most typical Karen people, but she was used to being abusive from her safe space. She was one of the disgusting asses who tried to use and abuse the race card to get away with anything and make a bad name for her peers she represents when she pulls out that race card. In the beginning, she played the victim with tears and all, but it didn't change the fact that, in fact, she had no ticket at all. And while I helped with translating, I made it clear that I don't work there at all. But in her worked up state, she ignored most of it and was getting more and more aggressive. It went back and forth, and several times I had to tell her I don't work there, I just try to help with the language, etc. I knew the cops would come, so all I had to make sure is that she admits that she thinks it's okay to attack me because of my race. When the cops came, I pulled up my card to trump her race card and used the N-word of all N-words there. And she was fully unprepared for that. I admit, using it can be unfair and very offensive, but yet I'd like to point out that my nose is a clear sign of my partly Jewish ancestry, and her comments on my ethnicity were the same the other Nazi used in the past. So the N-word she deserved was the word Nazi. So essentially, I have dropped the nuclear bomb of revenge on her. She thought she might experience the other N-words because of anger, and that can give her a high ground. But this surprise attack was totally devastating for her. Once she realized that her attacks were recorded, she attacked someone with a visibly Jewish ancestry in an area affected by the Holocaust, and she made it clear that her attacks were valid based on ancestry and ethnicity. She knew she couldn't win. I had to remind her once again that I don't work here, she has to pay the fine to the actual ticket inspectors instead. She was surprised that even after all of this, her fine had no other consequences. She wasted a lot of time, made a fool of herself, risked plenty of problems, etc. for less than $30. Her attacks against me? Well, I have told her that I might press charges, sue, etc., but she is free to suggest any other fair solution. She wanted to solve the issue with money, but I told her an apology is better if she learned from the incident. I also asked her that once she calmed down, think about it, and write an email about what she has learned from the incident. In the exchange of emails, I suggested that she should read First They Came by Martin Niemöller. and that her race and racism card was bad because with that thinking, there is, no matter who you are, there will be a card that essentially denies your rights. You are non-white, non-male, you can still be non-Jewish, cisgender, heterosexual. All people are born equal, and you shouldn't use discrimination to get advantages or get away with anything. She managed to understand, and as we share a hobby, tabletop RPG games, and both of us play quite often Dungeon Master Online, I consider her a friend now. We can blame Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition because dark-skinned versions of some creatures are often considered evil, and from what I've heard, she had some I don't work your lady moments herself, so I might ask her to post here. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I got really mad in the middle of reading that when he said he called her the N-word. I was like, no. But I'm so glad this guy turned out to be super mature and very nice. You gotta respect people that can manage to make friends of their enemies because, you know, that's something that only really mature people can do. You know, people that can understand other people's perspectives, and, you know, that's something we need more of. This is a really good story and pretty well written considering, you know, this guy speaks multiple languages. However, some parts I had to kinda try to guess what he was trying to say, but I hope I did an okay job. And sorry if I butchered that Russian pronunciation. I'm really self-conscious. This story is called Karen Demands Deaf Man Help Her, Gets a Nice Helping of Humble Pie. This happened maybe an hour or so ago to my friend Topher, and he gave me permission to post it here because we both found it so funny. Topher, who can hear, is fluent in American Sign Language thanks to his job and his degree. To practice, and because he likes the people there, he volunteers at a local deaf community center 3 times a week. Today was a regular volunteering day, and he was asked to check and see if the local Wally World had party supplies for a surprise birthday party they're planning for another volunteer. Topher agreed, and off to local Wally World he went. As he didn't have anything clean to wear, he was wearing a blue polo shirt and a nice pair of khakis, which also happened to be the same colored uniform most of the workers at Wally World wear. Topher was heading to the party supply section when he heard the classic war call of the wild Karen. Ahem! Topher turned around and saw a classic Karen. Short Captain Marvel haircut, leopard print leggings, and a too tight black shirt, and a face that looked like she had smelled a fresh turd. Because he had spent all day using American Sign Language, Topher was on what he likes to call sign language brain, where he'll sign on reflex. He signed, "Do you sign to her?" Upon seeing him sign, she grimaced before shouting in a slow voice,
I need help. Do you understand?
Topher was about ready to tell her that he could hear and to screw off, but he decided to have a little bit of fun at her expense. He held up his hand as if to ask her to wait, took out a smartphone, put it to the notepad app and typed, "Type here what you need and I'll help you find it." This humble response would make any normal person realize their bad manners and apologize profusely. But then again, I think everyone who has read and experienced an I Don't Work Your Lady story, Karen lacks this ability. So for the next 20 minutes, Karen ordered Topher around. She had him grabbing stuff, only to put it away when it was squashed, bent, dinged, etc., going to various aisles to get various things, wait outside for her at the changing room, the works. Topher was thinking about the best way to let the cat out of the bag, when Karen got a phone call from her phone, Wendy. Topher turned his back so as to hide the fact that he could hear.
Hey, Wendy. Yeah, I'm fine. Just a deaf kid helping me out. Yeah, they hire deaf people here. Can you believe it? No wonder the service here has gone to the crapper. They should stick with their own kind if talking is going to be a problem.
Topher was pissed at this point because he's worked with the deaf community for so long. He gets really angry whenever he hears them getting treated badly. But calmer senses prevailed and he prepared his "Shut up, Hannibal" speech. Finally, after 20 minutes, Karen announced that she was done and ready to check out. Topher walked her to a register that just opened and turned to her. Please tell your friend Wendy that I said hello." The look on Karen's face when she realized what had happened was priceless. I love stories like this, where people think that someone else can understand them so they talk crap, but it turns out they do understand, and they speak in the same way that they were speaking. My cousin actually has a story like this. So she was on the bus in New York, and there were some girls, they were talking They were sitting adjacent to her, and they kept on giving her strange looks, and they started speaking in Urdu, and she's fluent in Urdu. And they're like, oh my god, look at that girl, she's so stupid and stuff like it. I don't remember exactly what they said, but they were just, talking some mad trash, man. And then she waited for them to be done. Like, they were talking crap for like 5 minutes, and she didn't even know them. And then she got up, and I don't remember what she said, but I'll just kind of ad-lib in a bunch of Urdu insults. Some of those might be considered profanity, but what are you gonna do, translate it? Alright, here we have Deaf Story 2, Electric Boogaloo. Due to the positive responses to a previous post, my friend Topher told me the story about how he met the leader of the local deaf community center, Joanne. Given how nasty some of the Karens on this subreddit can be, I think we can use some heartwarming. A few years ago, back when Topher, who is hearing, was in his first year of learning American Sign Language, he stopped at a local big box mart to get some things to make dinner. While he was in the frozen food section, a well-dressed woman flagged him down. He headed over there out of habit, he's worked retail for years and some habits never leave, and asked if she needed something. The woman pulled out her phone and began typing something. Topher decided to practice and see if he could help her and signed, "Do you sign?" She lit up like a Christmas tree and asked him if he knew where the dairy section was. He couldn't remember how to sign 3 aisles to the right and gestured her to follow him. As they were talking, he apologized and explained that he was still learning sign language and didn't want to resort entirely to fingerspelling, which is mentally and physically exhausting. She understood and complimented him on his American Sign Language. They continued their rounds and got to know each other through signing, fingerspelling, and their smartphones. Her name was Joanne. She recently accepted a position at the local deaf community center and had gotten into town maybe an hour or 2 ago. She then asked him if he was interested in volunteering there and that it would be a great way to practice his American Sign Language. Topher said that he was interested and agreed. When they both got into an aisle, Joanne saw the manager and asked Topher to flag him down while she typed something on her phone. Topher did so, a little confused. The manager made his way over, and when he got there, Joanne showed him her phone. On it, she had typed, "Topher is a phenomenal employee and helped me find everything I needed. Please make sure he gets a raise." The manager was a bit confused, and Topher realized what had happened. Interpreting for both Joanne and the manager, he said, "I actually don't work here. I just saw you needed help." After having a good laugh about the confusion, they went on their separate ways, and Topher started volunteering at the Deaf Community Center the next week. He and Joanne are now very good friends. Edit words. Man, you gotta appreciate stories like that. That is so wholesome. I'm curious, how many of you guys have any deaf family members or close friends? And who knows, maybe some of you are deaf yourself and follow along with captions and, just read along. I'm curious, and have you guys ever had really helpful special encounters like this? I really want to read them. They're so sweet. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.